Hey folks, welcome again to Humanities 2. This is just a brief introduction just to kind of pick up where we left off in Humanities 1. So if you haven't taken Humanities 1 yet, it might be a good idea just to kind of skim through your textbook that you have for this course. The first 8 chapters are covered in Humanities 1, and we skip chapter 9, and this course, Humanities 2, picks up with chapter 10. So this presentation is just to kind of get everyone up to speed and sort of set the context for where this class is going to pick up. So again, Humanities 1 covers humanities from its prehistoric period, so things like small sculptures, the Greek and Roman periods, the Egyptians, cave paintings way back when, and it goes all the way up through the Renaissance and the Reformation. This course picks up right after the Protestant Reformation with the Church's Counter-Reformation in the Baroque period, and it will go all the way up through the most contemporary thing that's in the textbook. So just to kind of set the stage for what was last covered in Humanities 1, we have the Renaissance and the Reformation. So this is just a really quick overview. Certainly, again, if you want to look more deeply into these topics, I would definitely recommend that you look at smarthistory.com or that you look at your textbook at the previous chapters for Humanities 1. So the Renaissance period is a period that the term Renaissance means rebirth. It's a period that takes place after what many people for many years called the Dark Ages. So part of the reason why they call it the rebirth is it's the period that is following the Dark Ages. No one really calls it the Dark Ages anymore. We now refer to it as the medieval period. And Renaissance also means rebirth, and it's used because during this period people were discovering or rediscovering works from ancient Greece and Rome. So it's a rebirth of these ancient classics. Some of the major artists from the period are Ninja Turtle artists. We've got Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael, as well as figures like Brunelleschi and Ghiberti. You might recall some of the major works from the Renaissance period included the Sistine ceiling in the Vatican, Michelangelo's David, and also Donatello does a version of the David, the Florence Cathedral, Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. These were some of the major works of art from the Renaissance period. And while the Renaissance takes place all over Western Europe, really, it's situated primarily in Italy and what is today Florence and Rome. Some characteristics of this period: there's the rise in humanism, which is the celebration of human reasoning and the abilities of humans to know lots and lots of things. So this is the term that humanities derives from. We also see lots of naturalism, especially in the arts, and that's due in large part to an increase in scientific investigation during this period. So you might recall in studying Leonardo da Vinci that he's an artist, just as an example, who begins to conduct his own dissections of the human body in order to more accurately depict them in sculpture and in painting. So artists and everyone really is very, very interested in scientific investigation, and as a result of that, we begin to see more and more natural depictions of the human body and landscapes in the arts. Also, in terms of the artistic style, the Renaissance is sort of known for rationalism, balance, symmetry, and composition. So if you can think of or do a quick Google for Raphael's School of Athens, actually this is the picture. Nope, never mind, scratch that. So the School of Athens, we have this really busy composition with lots of figures featured throughout, and we have Plato and Aristotle, these two famous philosophers, who are standing in the center of this painting by Raphael. And even though this is a very crowded composition, there's lots of figures here, there's lots of architectural details here. Overall, there's this great sense of rationality, of balance, of symmetry, and that's one of the great characteristics of the Renaissance artistic style. I mentioned this because when we begin chapter 10 next week in this course, we're going to see something very, very different. We're going to see the rise of the Baroque period, and things are very irrational, very asymmetrical, really the complete opposite of what you might remember from the Renaissance period. So it's a good idea just to kind of Google some of these works, Google some of these artists here, just to sort of refresh your memory. And of course, the picture featured here is of Michelangelo's David. The other major thing that happens at the very end of Humanities 1 that it's a good idea for us to remember heading into Humanities 2 is the Protestant Reformation. So the Protestant Reformation really gets kicked off by Martin Luther, who is a German monk in Wittenberg in Germany. And he takes issue with quite a few things that are happening in the Roman Catholic Church. And so he puts together this list of 95 things, in fact, that he finds problematic with the church. And he nails it to the door of the Wittenberg Cathedral. So this becomes known as the 95 Theses. And because the printing press was invented just a short time before this, he really gets all of his ideas and all of his complaints against the church widespread because of this new device that allows people to make quick copies of whatever works that you're dealing with. So some of the things that he takes issue with in terms of the Roman Catholic Church, the selling of indulgences. So you might remember that an indulgence is basically where a person could pay money to the Roman Catholic Church, and in return they would get a lessening of time that they had to spend in purgatory as they're heading towards the afterlife. So the church funds a lot of major building programs. In fact, the entirety of the Vatican rebuild during the Renaissance period was funded through the selling of indulgences. So it was a huge fundraiser for the church. And Martin Luther takes a lot of issue with the idea that people can lessen their punishment in the afterlife by paying money, because, of course, this favors the rich and puts at a disadvantage people in the lower classes. He also takes issue with the lavishness of the church, the spending of the church. He takes issue with the idea that people can do good deeds or pay money in order to release themselves of punishment for sins. So he has this idea that by faith alone are people saved and allowed to go straight to heaven. So these are some of the issues. Certainly you can read back in chapter 8 and get a more extensive list. You can actually find the text from his complete 95 list of things that he has against the church, and take a look at that if you're very interested in this topic. You might also remember that once this sort of begins this Protestant Reformation, and that term Protestant has the term protest in it, because this really is a protest against the power of the Roman Catholic Church. And it's picked up by Martin Luther, but then there are others like Henry VIII in England who also use this kind of Reformation to their advantage as well. So what we began to see, and why it's important leading into this course, is that for all of Humanities 1, or not all of Humanities 1, from the rise of Christianity in Humanities 1 till the very end, the church is probably the most powerful entity in the world. And when I say the church, I mean the Roman Catholic Church. So you have to remember that they have vast land holdings in Italy. There was a time period where they had the Holy Roman Empire, which was a huge territorial conquest. So the Roman Catholic Church has been a very powerful central part of human life up until this point. And what we begin to see at the end of Humanities 1 is the church losing its power, while human reason and scientific investigation, which were very popular during the Renaissance period, began to take center stage. So it's important to kind of go back and look at the Renaissance, look at the Reformation as laying the foundation for this course, because when we kick off with chapter 10, what we're going to see first is called the Counter-Reformation. And this is where the Roman Catholic Church strikes back and wants to regain some of those Protestants who have fallen out from the church and want to regain them and bring them back into the fold. So we're going to see how that plays out in the arts and in literature, as well as just in history and religion and politics. So This is just, again, a quick overview. If you have no idea what I'm talking about when I talk about the Renaissance or the Reformation, I'd strongly encourage you to go back and read chapter 8 in the book. And we will move ahead next week. Thanks. That's all for now.